Eric Blair, better known as George Orwell, expresses his long-standing hatred of totalitarian rule in his books. This hatred developed after traveling to Spain and joining the Workers' Party of Marxist Unification in 1937. In Spain, he was shot in the throat by a communist sniper while fighting fascism in the Spanish Civil War.
The next moment, my knees crumpled up and I was falling, my head hitting the ground with a violent bang which, to my relief, did not hurt. I had a numb, dazed feeling, a consciousness of being very badly hurt, but no pain in the ordinary sense.
Eric Blair. As a result of the shooting, Orwell developed a lifelong anti-Stalin stance, which his novel Animal Farm embodies.
Throughout his life, Orwell wrote many books and essays expressing his democratic socialist views. Right before the publication of his first book, Eric Blair invented the pen name George Orwell to avoid public embarrassment and slander. Orwell's Burmese Days is a novel based on the waning days of British colonialism in Burma when it fell under the rule of the Indian Empire. Orwell's early books, such as Down and Out in Paris and London, details the poverty he faced in Paris after leaving the Indian Imperial Army.
Perhaps his best-known novel, 1984, was written in fear of the Nazi Party in Germany and what they stood for, totalitarianism and leader worship, which he described as an evil. 1984 is a work of fiction, but to Orwell it seemed all too real. He believed that any war is a war of evils and that one evil had to win. The defeat of Hitler would come at the cost of the rise of the USSR, entailing dictatorial methods, secret police, and the systematic falsification of history.
Though Orwell had been working on Animal Farm for a while, it wasn't published until 1946 because no publisher would accept it until after the war. It is considered a dystopian animal fable, a satire, an allegory, and a political Romanov. World War II had just ended, and democratic nations such as England and the US were in a panic about communism spreading.
Animal Farm takes place on an imaginary farm in England during an unspecified time period. It opens with a farm, largely in disarray because of a negligent owner, Mr. Jones. This opening shows the animals as fed up with the poor treatment they receive for the hard work they perform, also revealing the conditions that instigate the rebellion.
Orwell structures Animal Farm around the dystopian idea of communism, specifically in Soviet Russia. Each character represents a person or aspect of communist Russia. Old Major, the original leader, believes strongly in the purest form of animalism. He proclaims to his fellow animals, "Is it not clear, comrades, that all the evils of this life of ours spring from the tyranny of human beings? Only get rid of man, and the produce of our labor would be our own. That is my message to you, comrades. Rebellion."
After his death, the animals are only more closely united. He becomes a martyr, a kind of symbol for the revolution, just as Vladimir Lenin was during the Russian Revolution. Like Lenin, Old Major's body is used as a tool to remind the public of their cause.
After Major's death, the pigs take on the responsibility of leading the rebellion, since they are considered to be the most intelligent of the animals. Specifically, Napoleon and Snowball take charge. They are representative of Joseph Stalin and Leon Trotsky, respectively. However, a third pig also distinguishes himself. Squeaker, ironically named, is a very good speaker. His role throughout the book is to keep the animals believing in the animalism cause. Thus, he represents the propaganda that was spread throughout Russia to ensure that people still supported communism.
The animals reach their breaking point one night when Mr. Jones, drunk and belligerent, forgets to feed them. They raid the house, causing Jones and his wife to flee the grounds. The celebration that ensues doesn't last long because the pigs begin to create the rules, or 7 commandments, by which animalism should be followed. These commandments, written on the barn by the pigs, are agreed upon through a consensus, and it is decided that they are not to be broken under any circumstance.
However, the commandments alter at the whim of the pigs. Power begins to corrupt Napoleon. Snowball and Napoleon begin to argue, their differences causing a divide with the animals over the idea of building a windmill. After the animals express support for Snowball, Napoleon sends a band of ferocious hounds on Snowball to chase him off the farm. Just as Stalin exiled Trotsky and later assassinated, Napoleon rids the farm of his competition, Snowball. The pigs cover up the scene by having Squealer claim that during the retaliation of the humans, Snowball betrayed the animals by working with the humans. Napoleon then continues by suggesting that the animals build a windmill. When some of the animals speak up, questioning why he didn't support the windmill before, Squealer explains.
The windmill was, in fact, Napoleon's own creation, and he only seemed to oppose the windmill, simply as a maneuver to get rid of Snowball, who was a dangerous character and a bad influence.
With Snowball out of the way, history is changed by Napoleon in favor of himself to continue his rule and the lasting support of the other animals.
Napoleon raises attack dogs as his security, striking fear into anyone that may even think negatively of himself or his ideas. The dogs are like Stalin's secret police, both using scare tactics to implement their power and totalitarian control. They kept close to Napoleon, it was noticed, when they wagged their tails in the same way as the other dogs had been used to do to Mr. Jones. It slowly becomes apparent that Napoleon takes on more human and ultimately more Jones-like characteristics, those of which the animals had originally gotten away from. The dogs, in a raid to silence opposing views expressed by vocal animals, slaughter their comrades. They had come to a time when no one dared speak his mind, when fierce, growling dogs roamed everywhere, and when you had to watch your comrades torn to pieces after confessing to shocking crimes. Bystanders question if this is breaking one of the 7 commandments. No animal shall kill another animal. But the words without cause are added. Somehow or other, the last 2 words had slipped out of the animal's memory.
The animals forget, unable to recall animalism as was first agreed upon, thus allowing for government manipulation. History again is changed at whim to ensure the actions of the pigs aren't questioned by the other animals. They are unable to see the corruption surrounding them, thinking things, as bad as they are, could never be as bad as they were with the humans.
Truth to tell, Jones and all he stood for had almost faded out of their memories. They knew that life nowadays was harsh and bare, that they were often hungry and often cold, that they were usually working when they were not asleep. But doubtless it had been worse in the old days. They were glad to believe so.
The original 7 commandments change. Fishy to the other animals, yet they still remain quiet, fearful of the violence that would ensue should opposition occur. The pigs start acting more human, drinking alcohol and moving into the house. The other animals calling into question the commandments.
Again, the animals seemed to remember that a resolution against this had been passed in the early days, and again, Squealer was able to convince them that this was not the case.
Every commandment, supposedly set in stone, changes, causing little concern. Equality ceases to exist. The pigs, in all their superiority, create schools for their children so they can be educated, yet the other animals don't have the same opportunity. Education becomes a weapon, a tool of manipulation, only available to the upper class pigs. Yet the next generation of animals don't know any better.
Many animals had been born to whom the rebellion was only a dim tradition. They accepted everything that they were told about the rebellion and animalism.
Through this, Orwell shows that some animals are more equal than others, a paradoxical statement that encompasses the idea of a corrupted communist state.
Seen as the leaders of the farm, the pigs and the dogs view themselves as above the menial, hard labor. They don't help in the building of the cumbersome windmill. Boxer, the ever-loyal and hard-working draft horse, does most of the work, his mottos being, "I will work harder," and Napoleon is always right. He represents the lower class of Russia, uneducated and totally invested in the communist idea. These people are manipulated, used to further the party's influence and power. They are the laborers, carrying the weight of the nation's fate on their backs. Despite endless trips to the quarry, the windmill fails on multiple occasions, representing Russia's failed attempts at industrialization.
The other farms believe Animal Farm is doing well based on reports from the pigeons. The only lines of communications Animal Farm has with the outside world is through the pigeons and Whimper, yet the image portrayed from both these sources is manipulated. Napoleon allows Whimper to see only what he wants related to those outside the farm. Whimper represents the selected few allowed into communist Russia, whom gave reports to the outside world of the prosperity and growth of the country. The pigeons are symbolic of the propaganda leaving the country, only telling positive exaggerations, neglecting to recognize the reality of the situation.
During the final rebuilding of the windmill, Boxer gets injured to the point where he is unable to work. Thinking that he is being taken to a doctor, Boxer willingly gets into a trailer when old Benjamin realizes the cart is from a slaughterhouse.
"Fools! Fools!
Shouted Benjamin, prancing around them and stamping the earth with his small hooves.
Fools! Do you not see what is written on the side of that van?"
Boxer is betrayed by the very pigs he trusts, loyal always in both thought and action. The totalitarian power, after getting every last drop of use out of Boxer, exploits him in one final way, by not only sending him to his death, but by profiting by it as well. In a totalitarian state, the body in power will manipulate in every way possible, taking full advantage of those uneducated and too ignorant to stand for anything else.
Finally, the windmill is built, sturdy enough to last and awe-inspiring enough to catch the attention of the neighboring farms. Though breaking, yet again, another commandment, the pigs take the opportunity to interact and show off their achievements, built on the essentially slave labor of the other animals. The windmill is viewed as technologically advanced, serving as propaganda to prove that the farm is efficient, twisting the truth and covering the reality of the deprivation the other animals live in.
The pigs walk on 2 legs, arguably the most obscene of the rules they break, going against the farm's motto, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. Then there came a moment when the first shock had worn off and when, in spite of everything, in spite of their terror of the dogs and of the habit, developed over their long years of never complaining, never criticizing, no matter what happened, they might have uttered some words of protest. Instead of a rebellion ensuing, the sheep bleat in unison,
4 legs good, 2 legs better.
The very principle animalism is based on crumbles, giving way to the human tendencies originally shunned and loathed.
The human farmers, guided by the 2-legged pigs, make their way into the farmhouse, leaving the other animals out in the cold. These animals, however, do more work and receive less food than any other animal in the county. Being inside the house depicts the pigs as an exclusive group, transformed from the champions of the underdogs into aristocratic, capitalistic-minded dictators. The pigs are the only ones with power, deceptively taking what little power the other animals have, their only use found in their ability to work.
The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But already it was impossible to say which was which. Eventually, over the course of many years, the pigs turned into the detestable creatures they once fought against, proving that absolute power corrupts absolutely. The more control the pigs take, the more power-hungry they become.
Orwell suggests in Animal Farm that education can prevent manipulation of the masses. The animals on the farm are susceptible to manipulation because they do not know better. Few of them can even recite the alphabet, let alone read and understand words. Because of this, they fall subject to lies and alterations to history, unable to remember the original 7 commandments and recognize the pig's manipulations.
Things like living conditions and treatment at work remain the same despite political tumult. Old Benjamin is a pillar of this theme, standing as the only one to recognize that things do not change. Benjamin was the only animal who did not side with either faction. He refused to believe either that food would become more plentiful or that the windmill would save work. Windmill or no windmill, he said, life would go on as it has always gone on. That is badly. From one leader to the next, conditions and treatment remain the same.
Also suggested is the idea that when individualism is traded in for collectivism, people lose their voice and power. Instead of worrying about the advancement of self, the animals were only concerned about the group, sacrificing themselves for the greater good, like Boxer, who worked himself to death. Which then leads to the idea that totalitarian governments provide no security for people. Despite how hardworking or loyal a civilian may be, it won't stop the all-powerful government from betraying them if it suits the dictator's needs. After Boxer injures himself, he no longer serves a purpose to the pigs. He's unable to work and therefore is only using resources, not producing them. As a result, those in charge sell him, using every last bit of Boxer to benefit themselves.
All political thinking for years past has been vitiated in the same way. People can foresee the future only when it coincides with their own wishes, and the most grossly obvious facts can be ignored when they are unwelcome. George Orwell.